Hey guys, it's Haelian. Today I wanted to talk about Curse of the Dead Gods and see if I could provide some helpful information for anyone just getting started with the game. I've come up with a handful of tips that I think should help new players, and I've tried to think of things that I wish I had known when I first started playing the game. I've made sure this video is spoiler free so you don't have to worry about that as well. I'd like to start out by saying, no, you don't have to be a parry god to get through this game, but you will definitely need to learn enemy attack patterns and avoid damage as much as possible. Having said that, let's get started. Number 1, Blessings. Blessings are permanent, unlockable upgrades you can equip before starting a new run. You can only have up to 3 at once, and they cannot be changed in the middle of runs, so it can be quite difficult to choose which ones to unlock and use as a new player. Here are the blessings I've been using the most in my runs. By the way, I apologize for butchering any or all of the names here. First is Favor of Sich All. This is a great blessing just to get a head start on gold and perception, which will increase your gold generation by 25% for the rest of the run. Earning gold becomes extremely important, especially at higher difficulties of the game where the runs are longer and blood offerings aren't as much of an option. Next is Indomitable. I found this blessing worked well for me when I was still newer to the game and trying to figure out the longer temple difficulties. It essentially allows you to skip healing rooms on the map so that you can focus on increasing your power level instead after defeating a boss. After that is Tamok's Breath. Putting fire on your attacks is very helpful in dealing additional damage while also receiving less, since being within light reduces the damage you take in half. Fire does provide a damage over time effect and also synergizes with certain relics and weapon affixes. Lastly is Will of Sich All. This blessing won't be very helpful if you're still working your way through the shorter temples, but once you start on the longer ones, it will allow you to make more purchases using corruption and just give you more flexibility with room choices. An honorable mention is Reptilian Hunger. This blessing would be for later difficulties when you need large amounts of gold and your personal skill level has advanced enough to be able to dodge or parry most attacks. It's understandable to get hit on occasion, but just getting your greed kill count up into the double digits a couple of times in a run can really help your gold generation. Number 2, Room Selection. Getting a new weapon early on can be extremely helpful, I think, especially when you've unlocked a few divine favors so that you can try to find something that suits your playstyle or desired build. After getting a weapon you're happy with, I personally suggest focusing on getting relics, attributes, and upgrades, so avoid visiting more rooms with new weapons afterward. I'll provide suggestions for weapons later on in this video. Attributes are cheap in terms of gold and corruption, so I recommend prioritizing these, especially early on in the run, since relics can drop from enemies to fill in your empty slots. When it comes to choosing which attributes you're willing to purchase, I recommend pretty much always taking both, unless you're very close to the end of the run, in which case you'd probably want to avoid wasting resources on perception. When it comes to relics, they have a very wide range of possibilities, but I definitely recommend looking for some healing ones for some sustainability during the run. Relics scale with how far into the temple you are, so they are great to go for late into the run, but are always helpful. We'll go over relics a little more thoroughly later on in this video. If you're going to choose an upgrade room, I definitely recommend focusing on upgrading the same weapon each time, since stacking all your damage into one weapon works really well typically. When it comes down to deciding whether you should take a gold room or something else, it really depends on things like current corruption, gold, and what the other room options are. To help with these decisions, let's move on to our next tip. Number 3, Managing Corruption and Curses. I found myself fearing corruption and curses when I first started playing the game because I wasn't aware of what all the curses are capable of or what the full repercussions were. After some time, I realized that almost every curse has an upside as well as a downside. In fact, there are many curses I would rather have than not have while playing. Now that I know this, we can manage our corruption to make ourselves more powerful by using blood offerings whenever you don't have enough gold. Here are some quick facts about corruption. 1. You gain corruption whenever using a door. Use this knowledge to plan ahead how much corruption you should have in the future, as well as when you will gain a curse. 2. Some enemies inflict dark damage, which means you will gain corruption from getting hit by them. Avoid these attacks at all costs. 3. You remove a curse after every boss or champion, so make sure you don't waste this opportunity by not having any curses to remove. 4. The 5th curse is always the same, and you really want to avoid it. Getting up to 4 curses is definitely not a big deal, but if you gain the 5th, you're in for a rough time. You really don't want to get to the end of a run with little to no curses, because that means you could have potentially used blood offerings to get more powerful along the way to make the final boss easier for yourself. Managing corruption definitely requires some planning, but can be extremely rewarding, so make sure you take your time and plan out your path. Number 4. Relics. Healing relics are typically the best way to gain some sustainability in Curse of the Dead Gods. Heal from crit could be the most insanely overpowered trait you can get, but only if you have a weapon that guarantees crits in some way. For example, bows always crit when you perform a power shot. If you have a weapon that heals for every kill, getting a bonus healing relic can help boost that heal to better levels. Relics that scale your damage with your current golds can make you feel like a monster, but only if you're able to hold on to your gold, so you'll have to judge that based on how well you think you'll be able to manage your corruption and gold. Getting a relic that increases the level of the weapon you're using the most will increase your power significantly, since base damage is very powerful in the game. Lastly, poison damage can get absolutely insane, so using a weapon with poison and then getting additional poison damage on relics can increase your damage output significantly. When it comes to stats, I personally prize dexterity above the rest, since more damage can never be bad, whereas there are times when you don't need more perception and health is not always necessary. Number 5. Weapon suggestions. I think the weapon variety in Curse of the Dead Gods is what really sets the game apart, and I've had the most fun experimenting with all the different types, and getting my ass kicked with the ones I don't like. Having said that, here are the weapons I've had the most success with. Shields can be charged to bull rush into enemies and stun them even if they are in the middle of an attack, which can then lead into a combo with your other weapons. You can usually even follow up with another charge before the enemy can get an attack off, which means you can stun lock regular enemies as long as you manage your stamina correctly. Whips have a lot of versatility, since you can use the charge attack to stun enemies and follow up with a combo after, or you can end a main hand combo with a whip attack for a really nice AoE move that can help deal with large groups of enemies. I really enjoy using the claws on the main hand because of how fast they attack, allowing you to dodge or parry more easily while attacking. It's also easier to combo enemies than with a sword or mace because your attacks move you forward slightly when you have the claws equipped. Lastly, I've actually come to love using bows despite the low damage that they have. You get guaranteed crits when doing power shots, so I would recommend trying to pull those off most often and only using shorter attacks to keep up your greed kill counter when necessary. Combine those crits with additional crit damage from your relics and you're in for a good time. Being at a range can be a great benefit, especially when clearing small enemies in rooms, but beware of off-screen attacks. Bows don't perform as well against most bosses, since many will attack after just a single power shot, so you can't combo them easily. That's it for my top 5 tips for Curse of the Dead Gods. There was definitely a lot more I would like to have covered, but maybe we can save that for another video. Speaking of which, if you liked this video, make sure you throw a like on it and leave a comment. That way I'll know that you'd like to see more content like this. Alright guys, take it easy, and I'll see you later.